Christopher Columbus mentioned seeing lights in the sky on his voyage of discovery, objects that moved quickly and changed shape, and even luminous beings swimming in the sea. Some of these descriptions have been interpreted by some researchers as possible sightings of UFOs. After sunset, he sailed on his first course, west. They would travel 2 miles every hour, and up to 2 hours after midnight they would travel 90 miles, which is 22.5 leagues. At 10 o'clock at night, the admiral, being on the stern castle, saw a light, although, as it was so close, he did not want to confirm that it was land, but he called Pedro Gutierrez, the king's chamberlain, telling him that it looked like a light, that he should look, and so he didn't saw it. He also told Rodrigo Sanchez de Segovia that the king and queen had sent him as an observer, but he saw nothing because they were not in a place where he could see. After the admiral said this, he saw himself once or twice, and it was like a wax candle that rose and rose, which to a few seemed to be an indication of land, but the admiral believed that he was near land. Logbook of Christopher Columbus' first voyage. The first reference to supposed strange events in the American sky occurred on September 15, 1492, when Columbus wrote, "That day and night he sailed 27 leagues on his way west and some more. And at the beginning of this night they saw a wonderful branch of fire fall from the sky into the sea, 4 or 5 leagues away from them." The sailor's description is quite clear for those who do not know other matters than what the wisdom of those times allowed. What could it have been? Many claim that this could be the sign of the so-called OSNIs, unidentified underwater objects, or, on the contrary, a UFO that hid in the sea. As if that were not enough, on October 11, 1492, they would travel 2 miles every hour, and up to 2 hours after midnight they would travel 90 miles, which is 22.5 leagues. Since the admiral at 10 o'clock at night, being in the stern castle, saw a fire, although, as it was so close, he did not want to confirm that it was land, but he called Pedro Gutierrez, the king's court steward, telling him that it seemed like a fire, that he should look, and so he did and saw it. He also told Rodrigo Sanchez de Segovia that the king and queen had sent him as an observer, who did not see anything because they were not in a place where he could see. After the admiral said so, it was seen once or twice, and it was like a wax candle that rose and rose, which to few seemed to be an indication of land, but the admiral believed it was certain to be near land. According to the studies of another Spaniard, Manuel Ordage, who was an officer in the navy, when Columbus and other men saw the strange light, they were a little more than 80 kilometers away, concluding that this distance is excessive to be able to distinguish a bonfire on land. Therefore, many experts in the field claim that Columbus witnessed lights that were considered UFOs that would be witnessing or directing the discovery of America. In 1947, an American flying superfortress vanished strangely 100 miles off Bermuda. An intensive search by a large number of ships and aircraft failed to solve the mystery, which the US Air Force attempted to explain by attributing it to a tremendous updraft which, according to them, disintegrated the huge bomber. A similar explanation was given for the inexplicable disappearance in March 1950 of the American Globemaster while crossing the Atlantic en route to Ireland. On January 30th, 1948, a Tudor passenger plane, the Star Tiger of British South American Airways, vanished while flying about 400 miles off Bermuda. No floating debris was found. The plane was carrying a crew of 6 men and 25 passengers. The court that conducted the investigation into the probable causes of the accident could only say that the causes must have been external. Just over a year after the disappearance, on January 18, 1949, a second Tudor of the same company, the Star Ariel, with 13 passengers and a crew of 7, disappeared 200 miles off Bermuda on her way to Kingston, Jamaica. Despite the efforts deployed to search for her, the mystery of her loss could not be solved. No floating debris was found, but a strange event occurred. During the first night of the search for the missing Tudor 4, 2 aircraft, one an American bomber and the other a British BOAC passenger plane, independently reported seeing a strange light in the ocean in the area where the Star Ariel disappeared. No floating rafts or buoys with signal lights were found. Nothing. What can explain the mysterious light? What is lurking in the skies and waters of Bermuda? On the night of February 9, 1913, a celestial procession of strange lights was seen in Canada, Saskatchewan and Ontario, the United States, New York, at sea, and over Bermuda. According to one witness, it looked like an express train lit up at night. Let us now examine some of the damning facts gathered by that insatiable curiosity seeker Charles Fort. On June 18, 1845, according to the Malta Times, the brig Victoria, 900 miles east of Adelia, near East, was seen by its crew to emerge from the sea three luminous bodies, which were visible for 10 minutes half a mile from the ship. Other witnesses also saw the phenomenon in Adelia, Syria, and Malta. The luminous bodies were 5 times larger than the full moon and had appendages connecting them to each other. Aimé Michel reports similar observations, Sucot Majus, during the French wave of 1954. The phenomenon was followed from land by the Reverend Paulet. On March 22, 1870, in equatorial waters of the Atlantic Ocean, sailors on the English corvette Lady of the Lake saw a curious object or cloud in the sky. It was a lenticular cloud with a long posterior appendage and it moved against the wind. This shape was visible for an hour, according to Captain F.W. Banner's record in the ship's log. The sketch made by Captain Banner is remarkably reminiscent of a flying saucer. On December 5, 1872, the English ship Dei Gracia found an abandoned sailing ship between the Azores and Lisbon, which turned out to be the American brig Mary Celeste. The story of the Mary Celeste, first told in the London Times of February 14, 1863, is so famous that I do not intend to repeat it in detail. That abandoned but intact ship, alone in the middle of a calm ocean, with the boats not lowered, a half-written letter on the captain's table, the soup still steaming in the plates, everything in order on board, remains an inexplicable mystery. Her crew was never heard from again. Equally mysterious is the case of the Rosalie, a large French ship bound from Hamburg to Havana, which was found abandoned with almost all its sails set, no leaks and its valuable cargo intact. On board there was only a half-starved canary in a cage. At midnight on the 24th of February, 1885, at a point between Yokohama and Victoria, the captain of the brig Inuit, according to Fort, was awakened by his mate, who had seen something unusual in the sky. The captain went on deck and saw that the sky seemed to be on fire. The next instant a great fiery mass appeared over the ship, completely blinding the spectators. The fiery mass rushed into the sea. Its size must have been considerable, given the volume of water it raised and which was thrown against the ship in the form of a gigantic wave and which produced a roar described as deafening. The captain, who was an old sea dog, declared that the terror produced by this spectacle could not be described in words. The object which made such an impression on these brave sailors may have been a gigantic bolide, but the object sighted on November 12, 1887, from the English steamer Siberian could not possibly have been one. This object, described as a great ball of fire, rose from the sea off Cape Race, rose to an altitude of 15 meters, then advanced towards the ship and then moved away, remaining visible for 5 minutes. For further details, see the American Meteorological Journal, 6-443. Captain Moore, who was in command of the Siberian, said that it was not the first time he had seen such apparitions in this very place. Was there a submarine UFO base there? On May 15, 1879, Commander J.E. Pringle of the British warship Vulture observed in the Persian Gulf the presence of waves or pulsations of light in the water, moving at great speed, about 130 kilometers per hour, and passing under the Vulture. Looking eastward, this phenomenon gave the appearance of a gigantic wheel revolving with its center in that direction. The spokes were luminous, and looking westward a similar wheel was observed, but turning in the opposite direction. The captain adds, these luminous waves went from the surface to great depths under the water. Before and after this strange spectacle, the ship passed through areas covered with a floating substance, described as oiler-looking spawn. There is no doubt that, today, the sea continues to be the scene of strange events. In confirmation of this, here is some news, published by the World Press. On October 6, 1958, lighthouse keepers along the Irish coast were struck by a new mystery at sea. Late on Sunday night, the newspaper said 10 ships were out to sea to begin a rescue operation when it was reported that a large fire had been seen. Although no radio message was received, the sight of the flames led to the belief that a ship had caught fire on board. When the ships arrived at the estimated location of the ship, some 5 miles from the Uska lighthouse, they saw absolutely nothing, and the search was abandoned early in the morning when no more flames were seen and no distress messages were received. 2 years later, on January 8, 1960, another strange event aroused world curiosity. The British ship Corinthia, of 15,862 tons, encountered a mysterious substance floating on the sea as far as the eye could see on both sides of the ship as it was bound for Wellington from London, said Captain A.C. Jones. The substance, which was found nearly 880 miles off Pitcairn Island, was honey-colored and silk-like in consistency. Remember, the mysterious substance sometimes dropped from flying saucers and called fils de la Vierge in France. Some of the pieces, according to the captain, were several square meters in size, but broke into small fragments. Research by Eugenio Daniels de la Sina. Break time equals 1s. Copy of the official report. Dated on board the T. Generator in the North Atlantic, the 8th of July, 1965. Written by First Officer Torgrim Lien. It occurred on Tuesday, the 6th of July, 1965, at 9:53 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, when the ship was sailing from Puerto La Cruz, Venezuela, to Santa Cruz de Tenerife, and was in position 24 degrees 40 minutes north, 41 degrees 15 minutes west, northeasterly wind force 5, barometer 1.023, and temperature 23 degrees Celsius. When I went out to the port side at the aforementioned time, called by the lookout, I observed a large tongue of fire of an intense blue color, which was sliding at great speed towards the ship. I ran to the telephone to call the captain and, without waiting for his answer, I went to the starboard side of the bridge, taking the binoculars. Then I saw the large object passing in front of the ship. We were then sailing 2,030 miles from this port. The object passed very close to the ship, towards the stern, at a height of between 200 and 400 meters and well below the clouds. The sky was almost clear, and the stars and the moonlight could be seen, as well as some low clouds. I could see the fuselage of the object perfectly from its upper part. It was shaped like a cigar, and I clearly saw a line of windows from which a light between light yellow and orange came out. The aircraft had no signs of wings or a rudder. It showed a tail of bluish fire that was narrower on the side where it emerged and then widened. A little further behind the object and in the wake it left, a group of incandescent balls could be seen, from each of which blue rays came out parallel to the direction of the object. At first I thought that those incandescent balls were airplanes, but then I saw clearly that they were not. The length of the tail of fire must have been about 100 meters. The object seemed larger than the types of airplanes known to date. It moved at an enormous speed and was visible for about 30 or 40 seconds, passing from north to south, with a course of approximately 160 degrees. Despite its great speed and having passed so close, we did not hear any noise. The port lookout, who was the sailor Ambrosio Hernandez, says that at first it seemed as if the object was coming out of the sea heading north. Suddenly it changed course and headed towards the ship. Narciso Guillen, the helmsman, declares that he saw the object astern. The repairman Juan Hernandez and the waiter Ignacio Suarez make the same statement. Of course, this was not an ordinary plane or jet. The following signed the statement: Torgrim Lien, Ambrosio Hernandez Diaz, Narciso Guillen, Juan Hernandez and Ignacio Suarez Reyes, all crew members of the Norwegian oil tanker Generator. Testimony of the watchman Ambrosio Hernandez. I was on the bridge, on the port side, trying to fix the position of the North Star. At this point I saw that the sea was becoming hot. I thought it was a ship that had exploded, and I waited for the sound of the explosion. I heard nothing. I then observed that a large object came out of the sea and rose, then it changed course and headed towards us. I then called the first officer, who appeared immediately. I think it came out of the bottom of the sea. Otherwise the water wouldn't have ignited. I think it detected our ship with its radar or whatever and came closer to see what it was. That's why it first rose in another direction and then came closer. It passed closer to those mountains, and the sailor pointed to the ones in the quarry near the eastern dock. I could see it very clearly with its windows, its tail of fire and the flaming balls it left behind it and then went out, like fireworks. It looked as if there was a large tube behind it and other smaller ones, fan-shaped, that were spewing fire. But I couldn't hear any noise. It's strange that such a large object, which was at least as long as 3 airplanes, could move in silence. And it seemed to be propelled by rockets. Anyway, I've never seen anything so strange. One of the most interesting questions surrounding the mystery surrounding USOs and the recent drones or UFOs that fly over different military bases or airports in different parts of the world is when we ask ourselves, does the US government have material recovered from extraterrestrial aircraft? One of my US military sources told me under strict conditions of anonymity a dark history of missions dedicated to recovering exotic materials of non-human origin under the utmost secrecy. These revelations add weight to an intense debate about the transparency of the US government regarding USOs, unidentified submerged objects. One of my sources told me that recovery missions involving materials of non-human origin are hidden within legitimate recovery programs. And several US Navy informants have privately confirmed to me about underwater USO recovery missions. Those allegedly involved include the CIA's Directorate of Operations Maritime Branch, the US Navy, the National Underwater Reconnaissance Office, operated jointly by the Navy and CIA, and the US Special Operations Command. The Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution is further understood to have provided deep diving vehicles to support these recovery efforts. Once recovered from the seabed, these vessels are allegedly transferred to the Office of Naval Research, from where they are handed over to defense contractors for detailed analysis. An intelligence community source informed me that USO missions on foreign soil have not typically involved the CIA's Office of Global Access, now known as the Transnational Technology Mission Center, because such operations generally fall outside its primary purview. However, the same source explained to me that joint efforts between the US and allied governments have sometimes led to collaborative recoveries, such as the reported incident in Virginia, Brazil. The Virginia case, often referred to as Brazil's Roswell, revolves around reports of UFO debris, along with multiple accounts of sightings of non-human entities in 1996. Eyewitnesses described both local authorities and what appeared to be American personnel on site, securing recovered materials and conducting operations, giving rise to all sorts of speculation about the objects recovered at sea and on land about this international recovery collaboration. This same source revealed to me that, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States and Russia cooperated on at least one underwater mission to recover a craft of alleged non-human origin that had crashed in Russian waters. He also told me about the process of transferring materials to defense contractors. In terms of recovered materials, I know of one occasion where a designated individual within the CIA Directorate of Operations collaborated with other agencies to decide which contractor to hire for analysis and exploitation. That decision depends on the circumstances. For example, if the object is submerged and capable of propelling itself underwater, it would be prudent to turn to general dynamics. However, if it were to crash into the sea from outside Earth orbit, other contractors would be considered. My source added that until recently, US and Chinese intelligence agencies had also been tracking submerged USOs and exchanging data. I have been informed that reverse engineering efforts fall primarily within the purview of the Department of Defense. The CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology presumably safeguards the adapted technology derived from USO research conducted by the Department of Defense and its contractors. My source informed me of the division of responsibilities. The Department of Defense focuses on analyzing the structure and design of the craft, while the Department of Energy, DOE, specializes in studying its propulsion systems. My informant added that the primary role of the CIA's Weapons and Counterproliferation Mission Center, WCPMC, and the broader intelligence community in USO research involves studying the phenomena, assessing possible non-human origins, categorizing the types of intelligence that can control them, and investigating their intentions. As I previously reported, according to my sources, former CIA Director of Science and Technology Glenn Gaffney allegedly blocked an attempt to transfer material presumably of non-human origin from Lockheed Martin. The alleged extraterrestrial materials are believed to have been recovered as far back as the 1950s. I understand, and it is not too much to assume, that due to engineering recruitment challenges, James Ryder, Vice President of Lockheed Martin Space Systems at the time, proposed transferring these materials to an outside organization to drive further advancements. It is acceptable from my sources of information that one of Gaffney's successors within the CIA's Science and Technology Directorate rejected the engagement efforts of the now disbanded USO UAP Task Force, UAPTF. According to multiple sources, the CIA's WCPMC has allegedly played a key role in USO UAP missions and has historically provided analytical expertise on non-human exotic materials. While not directly involved in the operational component of the current recovery and reverse engineering efforts, coordinated by the CIA's Science and Technology Directorate and Directorate of Operations, it remains an integral source of intelligence. According to my sources, the WCPMC receives technical space intelligence from National Reconnaissance Office (NRO) assets, along with technical analysis from Department of Defense combat support agencies such as the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, National Security Agency, NSA, and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA. This includes signals intelligence, measurement and signature intelligence, and geospatial intelligence. According to Senate testimonies reported, the WCPMC collects and analyzes USO UAP data from all domains, including aerospace, space, and undersea domains. Notably, the current CIA Director of Operations, Maura Burns, who manages the CIA on a day-to-day basis, previously served as Deputy Director of the WCPMC, before earning a promotion in 2021. One of my sources tied to the intelligence community told me that the WCPMC served as the CIA's primary liaison to the UAPTF. Understanding the CIA's WCPMC, Weapons and Counter-Proliferation Mission Center, and its origin sheds light on the agency's, and its predecessors', involvement in USO UAP research since the 1940s. 1947, the origins of the WCPMC can be traced back to the creation of the Scientific Intelligence Branch within the Office of Reports and Estimates, ORE, known as the CIA's first Intelligence Analysis Center. 1949, the Scientific Intelligence Division was merged with the Nuclear Power Group of the Office of Special Operations, forming the OSI Office of Scientific Intelligence. Records exist to verify that the OSI took an interest in unconventional scientific phenomena, including USO UAP, which were perceived as potential threats to national security during the Cold War. This interest led to the study of unexplained sightings to assess any foreign or technological origins that could affect US defense. 1980, OSI evolved into the Office of Scientific and Weapons Research, OSWR. 2001, OSWR was restructured and became the Office of Weapons Intelligence, Non-Proliferation and Arms Control, WINPAC. 2015, as part of a major CIA reorganization, WINPAC was restructured and renamed WCP, Weapons and Counter-Proliferation Mission Center. The CIA's interest in alleged non-human materials is understood to date back to World War II and its predecessor, the Office of Strategic Services OSS. 3 separate UFO research sources independently told me that a mission to hasten Italy's surrender, led by its director William Donovan and known as Project McGregor, had information about a non-human craft that crashed at Magenta in northern Italy in 1933. According to a roll of microfilm preserved by Donovan, Project McGregor was transferred to the Research and Development Division on June 21, 1944. The communication, seen below, indicates that Charles S. Cheston, Deputy Director of the OSS, informed the head of the Research and Development Branch that Project McGregor was transferred to his branch in June 1944. According to my American source, the study of the recovered Magenta craft was closely integrated with the activities of the Manhattan Project. He also told me that, beginning in 1946, the Atomic Energy Commission, AC, worked with Italian and German scientists at Wright Field to reverse engineer the Magenta craft, carrying forward research that had initially begun between Germany and Italy. He explained to me that the Central Intelligence Group, CIG, the US government agency that succeeded the OSS and preceded the CIA, subsequently inherited the study of the Magenta craft when the Foreign Intelligence Branch was transferred from the Manhattan Project to the CIG. It is understood that the transferred element of the Manhattan Project was initially established within the SIG's Office of Special Operations before being folded into its nuclear power group. Subsequently, within the CIA, the Scientific Intelligence Branch was merged with this nuclear power group, forming the OSI Office of Scientific Intelligence, the precursor to today's WCPMC. The alleged implication? The CIA's WCPMC traces its lineage directly to the Magenta craft, putting it at the forefront of the agency's role in studying USOs, UAPs, and the non-human intelligence that controls them. To this day, it is understood that WCPMC can collaborate with the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy to offer its expertise in analyzing materials of suspected non-human origin, in addition to collecting and analyzing intelligence on USO UAP from agencies across the US government. I was also informed that when the CIG and later the CIA inherited the study of the Magenta craft, it was the primary agency involved, preceding the establishment of the NSA, DIA, NRO, and NGA. At present, it is understood that WCPMC's access to study non-human materials is conditional and requires authorization from both the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy. This means that the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy can choose to bypass WCPMC if they decide that the mission center's outside expertise is not needed. Regarding recovery operations, officers from the CIA Directorate of Operations are assigned to the WCPMC, which gives its leadership direct access to intelligence on missions involving the recovery of non-human material. This includes missions led by the Directorate of Operations Maritime Division, which specializes in underwater recoveries of UFOs. I have also been informed that other types of recovery operations occur between the CIA and certain elements of the Department of Defense. These operations are believed to include recoveries of non-human material in cave systems involving elements of the United States military. At this time, I currently lack sufficient information to report in detail on these reports. The purported web of recovery operations, UFO UAP tracking, agency responsibilities, and collaboration, including analysis and reverse engineering efforts, forms a highly complex network. If accurate, it reveals a secret shrouded in multiple layers of bureaucracy, making it difficult for elected officials who are now struggling to understand and address allegations of a cover-up of monumental proportions. How many objects seen entering and leaving our seas are of unknown origin? Who or what is producing those strange sounds heard by hundreds of sailors and fishermen coming from the depths of the sea? Are the objects behaving unusually on our seas secret prototypes obtained from a recovery of non-human objects? We will be attentive and continue investigating. This is only the beginning of the confirmation that something is hidden in our seas. And what better place than the abyssal depth and the immensity of the oceans to not be seen? Or maybe they do want us to see them, and this is a way of telling us, we are here, we are among you, we never left.